Hi, and welcome. You're listening to the X22 Report. My name is Dave, and this is episode 1187B, and today's date is January 25th, 2017, and the title of the episode is, Are the Elite Trying to Push Trump into a Heated Showdown with China? Let's get into the economic collapse, political and geopolitical news. Now, under Obama's presidency, he had more mass shootings in his 8 years than any other president, which is amazing. And when we looked at them, we pointed out very quickly false flags, patsies, and most of these individuals had some mental disabilities where it looked like the FBI, CIA took advantage of them and pushed them into things they normally wouldn't do. And at this point, we knew that the elite, the central banks, the shadow government, they wanted to take the weapons away from the people. That was their whole agenda. This is why John Kerry came out and he signed the UN Arms Trade Treaty, because they were going to try to convince everyone, if it actually got past the Senate and Obama signed it, they were going to convince us that this overrides the Second Amendment. Now, what's very interesting is that Obama did put this back into the Senate, and this was in this November-December time frame. And we did have one last mass shooting. And I don't think it went as planned the way they wanted it to. I think things got a little screwed up. The local police captured the individual. Most likely this individual was supposed to be, gunned down, and he was supposed to do more than what was happening at the time. And things didn't go as planned, so they couldn't get this off the ground. And we knew at this point in time that they really wanted the weapons away from the people, especially the assault rifles. That's what they were very worried about. And we can see with Trump, well, his stance is completely different. And this is one way that you know that he doesn't care. He doesn't worry about the people rising up. He doesn't care about the people overthrowing him and his administration. Because on WhiteHouse.gov, Trump makes it clear that he is upholding the Second Amendment. And it's part of supporting law enforcement. And he says supporting law enforcement means supporting our citizens' ability to protect themselves. We will uphold American Second Amendment rights at every level of our judicial system. And he's looking to appoint Supreme Court justices that will uphold this. He's also putting forth executive orders or going to push different things where people will be able to carry a weapon nationally. This is not a president that is worried about an uprising, about people having weapons. Only those in power who believe that people are a threat to them, especially if they have weapons, push the notion of removing the weapons from the people. And I'm going to make a prediction right now that under Trump's administration, the number of mass shootings is going to be very low. And when these mass shootings are investigated, they're going to find out that these individuals have some type of mental problems. They're on some type of medication. And just like drunk driving, they're under the influence. It's not the weapon. It's not the car that committed the crime. It's the individual. I mean, look out in Europe when we had the false flags of a truck hitting a crowd of people. How come there's not a huge call out there to ban trucks? It doesn't make sense. So we will see what happens, and we will look back in time to see how it compares to Obama. Now, at the end of Obama's term, the corporate media was out there and they were saying, oh, wow, Obama had an approval rating. It was very high, unbelievable. Well, Gallup just took a poll and it doesn't look good. They're reporting that Obama's approval rating is 47.9%. Now, Kennedy is number one with 70%. Then it's Dwight Eisenhower, George H.W. Bush, Clinton, Lyndon Johnson, Ronald Reagan, George W. Bush, Richard Nixon, who was impeached, then Obama. So the people are looking at this saying, well, he wasn't such a great president. And the reason why people were looking at this and voting in this way is because of the debt, because of unemployment, and what was happening out in the Middle East. So when you hear all this, it kind of tells you that the people saw through his lies. And the corporate media was out there to keep the illusion that he was the best president ever, which it turns out that, no, the people don't see it that way. Now, Google is out there, and they have gone after fake news sites. They've also gone after publishers that are posting fake ads on their AdSense advertising service. They're cracking down on misleading ads, bad ads on mobile, ads trying to game the system, promoting and profiting from bad sites. But one thing that's very interesting is they did go after fake news sites, and one of them was a tabloid cloaker where they took the name of a real news site, changed the domain name a little bit, and they were pretending that they were news outlets. Well, that is fake news. But then you have 200 other sites which they have not disclosed, which they shut down, which they say, yeah, these are completely fake. We don't know what they are. They have not disclosed the list of the 200 sites that they have permanently banned from their ad revenue service. It doesn't mean that their sites have been taken down. They're still operational. You just can't make money from Google. Now, Trump is out there and he is pushing the idea that he is going to launch a major investigation into voter fraud. Now, yesterday we looked at the voter fraud with the illegals, and this is what he's claiming, that there was about 3 to 5 million people that could have voted illegally. Now, again, there's no IDs. It's very hard to prove. But we know from Bev Harris that, well, the voting can be manipulated. We know from the Census Bureau that there were about 2.9 million illegals let into the country through Obama's memorandum. And just so happens that Hillary Clinton had about 2.9 million of the popular vote over Trump, which is a very big coincidence. Now, he's not just going to be looking at 2016. He's also going to go back in time. And I'm sure the elite and those who manipulate the voting, well, I'm sure they're a little nervous right now. And the question is, why is he doing this? He already won the election. Well, one of the reasons I think he's doing this is to prevent fraud in the future. And I think what he's going to try to do is set up a system where you need to prove yourself by maybe using an ID and showing that, yes, you are a citizen. It's very interesting that we need an ID to get on a plane. We need an ID to drive a car. At a checkpoint, you have to show your ID. And you need to continually use your ID for everything. But to vote for the individual who's going to run the country, you don't need to prove anything, which is unbelievable. And if we did show the ID, showing that, yes, I voted, they check you off, you're proven now that you have voted. Even to get a passport, you have to show identification to get the passport. So we can see right now, if he puts this forth, this would completely get rid of voter fraud. I mean, yes, there still would be ways you can get around it, but having individuals just come in and just vote, well, that would be tough to do. Now, on the campaign trail, Trump did promise that he was going to be building a wall between the United States and Mexico. And right now, he is pushing this agenda forward. And he says negotiations between the two nations would begin relatively soon. And he's also saying that the taxpayers are going to have to lay out the money for this wall. And then they're going to be reimbursed from Mexico. Well, will this actually happen? Well, those in government positions always seem to tell us that we're going to be reimbursed, and it never does happen. And we have to really think about this. Why would Mexico all of a sudden pay for 100% of the wall? I mean, they're looking to leave NAFTA right now, even though Trump's saying he wants to negotiate. We could see at this point that there is no incentive for Mexico to pay for the wall. They don't care if people leave. But we can see there is a reason for this. There's a reason for the wall. I know people are like, well, he's not going to let anyone into the country. Yes, if you go through the process. You just can't jump over and say, hey, I'm a citizen now. You need to go through the process. And that's all he's saying. And everyone's saying that he's going to be blocking everyone out. No, that is fake, phony, and false. I mean, think about it. Normally, why are people trying to escape their country? I mean, if the government is tyrannical, yes, or if they committed a crime, they try to escape the authorities. If the government is tyrannical and they're trying to come in here, they can go through the diplomatic process. But most of those individuals trying to jump over the wall to get in, well, they're escaping something. And again, there's no problem with people coming into this country. It happens all the time. And all those people who went through the process, who legally did it, they're out there saying, well, wait a minute. Why can this person do the same thing I did when I had to go through the process and they could just skip over the border and, hey, they're in? And you have to remember, Obama signed that memorandum right before the vote, what was it, like 2 years ago, because he knew the population was not with him on this. And he was bringing in the illegals for a completely different reason, different agendas, most likely for the votes, because they thought they were going to pass TPP. Obamacare, those individuals would get it. Many different agendas associated with illegals coming into this country. Now, there's a document that is floating around because the New York Times published a 3-page draft of the executive order. And right now, Sean Spicer is saying, who's the spokesman for Trump, is saying that, well, we don't know what this is. This is not authentic. We don't have anything like this. We don't know where this came from. But we can see the corporate media and the elite, well, they are just pushing fake news to the next level. And when you look at this, the first thing you have to say, well, it's not top secret. Why is it printed out on paper? That's kind of odd and strange right off the bat. Why is it crumpled? I mean, this is starting to look like one of those spy movies where the person printed it out in the office and maybe threw it in a briefcase, in a purse, because the person who gave it is anonymous. And we see folds and creases on it. It was stapled. Why didn't they just put it on a USB stick and keep it in electronic form? I mean, when WikiLeaks, let out all the emails, they didn't print them out and say, here you go. It was done electronically. Oh, wait. When they asked Hillary Clinton for the emails, oh, right, she did print them out. So we can see right now, most likely, this is completely a fake story that the corporate media and the elite have put out there. But we'll have to wait and see what comes out of this. We'll see if Trump tweets about this. We see NATO is building up the Gulf presence through the new center in Kuwait. We see NATO is deploying troops, and they're arriving in Lithuania right now. About 1,200 NATO troops are in this area. And of course, it's all about Russian aggression. They're spearheading the force against Russia. And very interestingly, we can see that in Libya, well, General Haftar is making a deal and has already made a deal with Russia about supplying weapons. So Putin is going to be supplying Haftar, who's a key player in the Libyan civil war. He leads the Libyan National Army, and he is close ally with the Tobruk-based House of Representatives, and is a rival to the Tripoli-based government of National Accord, which is the unity government. So Russia is going to be giving him armored vehicles, ammunition, sophisticated listening and surveillance devices. And this is going to give him the edge. The unity government in Libya is pretty much done. And when you take this and you put it together with what the U.S. did, the elite did in Libya, where they bombed a certain area and they said they were going after the Islamic State, and then they changed their story, we can see they were really going after those who are a threat to the unity government. We can see now that Turkey, they are reportedly pulling in tanks and other military vehicles toward the Syrian border. And this is near the district of Kilis province on the Syrian border. And they're also training Syrian police officers to guard the border. So there's a lot going on in Syria right now. The elite, they're still pushing their agenda. They have not stopped. We see Russian bombers once again for the third time. They have bombed the Deir ez-Zor area, and they hit the weapon caches, the ammunition, military vehicles of the Islamic State, and they destroyed all the targets. Now, it seems that the U.S. State Department and the corporate media, it looks like they're not giving up on the claims that the Syrian government used chemical weapons on its own people. And, of course, this, despite having no evidence to back up their claims of Assad's guilt, they're continually pushing this out there. Now, the UN OPCW, their inquiry, known as the Joint Investigative Mechanism, JIM, is led by a panel of 3 independent experts, supported by a team of technical administrative staff. And it is mandated by the UN Security Council to identify individuals and organizations responsible for chemical attacks in Syria. Virginia Gamba, the head of the Joint Investigative Mechanism, denied any list of individual suspects had yet been compiled by the inquiry. There are no identification of individuals being considered at this time. But we can see the elite, the shadow government, the corporate media, they're pointing the finger at Assad. They have not given up yet. They're still pushing their agenda. Trump is pushing his agenda. The elite, the globalists, are pushing their agenda. And we're going in 2 different directions right now. But what's very interesting about all this, they know that Trump, well, he is not too keen on Iran. He doesn't like the P5+1 deal. He wants to put up a missile defense system pointing towards Iran, or improve the system right now. And he's starting a trade war with China. Now, the elite see this, and they're going to try to take advantage of this, because they know they can't start the war with Russia. They've been trying. But Trump is out there saying, listen, we want better relations with Russia, and we can see at this point, it's not going to work. So it looks like right now that they're going to change direction. They're going to try to push Donald Trump into a war with China in the South China Sea and maybe Iran. Because they can see they can use this and play on this to push him into some type of conflict. And we already see that it is getting heated up. We can already see that the U.S. is, Sean Spicer is making an announcement saying that we're going to protect our interests in the South China Sea. So they're going to play on this. Those neocons, the elite, those individuals that want war, they're going to push this very hard. And they don't care where it starts, as long as it starts. Because once it starts, they know the players are all the same. They know that Russia will defend China. They'll bring North Korea into it, Syria and Iran, and other nations. So they already know they can make this go in the direction they want if they play this right. And they're going to try. Hopefully, Trump realizes what's going on, realizes what they're trying to do, and pushes back. We see out in Germany, well, they're on alert over an Islamic State attack. I mean, the Islamic State's still around. And what they're saying, and remember, there's elections coming up right now. Angela Merkel, this fall, the elections are coming up. She already has the Ministry of Truth. They're already blocking fake news. And the only reason I can see right now that they're playing this up is to bring in more draconian laws. Because what they're saying is that the Islamic State, they have intelligence that they're going to use chemical weapons on the country's supply of drinking water. And this is according to a federal police document released by Germany's Bild magazine. There's a high risk that terrorists could procure and use large amounts of chemicals for this type of an attack. Now, we might see a false flag in this area, because then it will allow Angela Merkel to clamp down even harder on the people's rights and what they can do there to help push her election forward. This is what the countries do. Look at France. They did the same thing. They created all these laws. Look at Turkey. I mean, he's really a dictator right now. And if you really think about it, most of these countries from all these terrorist attacks, they're all in a state of emergency. So we can see that most likely this is what they're trying to push in Germany. And we can see that there might be more events happening here because, again, the elite, they have not given up. They're still going forward with their agenda. And we can see at this point that they're not going to stop. They're going to continue on, pushing forward to reach their goals. And I think Trump right now has completely different plans. But the elite will not stop. They'll try to trap him one way or another. And we'll have to see how all this plays out. Listen, everyone, thanks a lot for listening. Be well, be safe, and especially be prepared. Thanks a lot.